Ladies and gentlemen, we got good news for Burkina Faso. A lot of doctors of Burkina Faso descent, a lot of engineers of Burkina Faso descent that are outside the country are beginning to return back to the country to help the country develop and to get to that next level. At this point now, it seems as if Burkina Faso, they are really, really seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of farmers are returning back to their farm, and their agricultural net produce is already, astronomically elevating, and we can see the ripple effect on their economy. They are really, really doing great. But when you listen to this interview from General Michael Langley,
well, let's talk about countries taking on their own autonomy. You are on African soil, not for the first time, but this would be a good moment to ask about one of the countries that has taken its own autonomy, and that's Burkina Faso. Your remarks recently at the Senate seem to suggest that he's diverting, General Traore, is diverting its 4 billion gold reserves to sustain his military rule rather than for public welfare. These remarks sparked widespread condemnation across the continent. What did you mean by that statement?
Let me speak to Burkina Faso's sovereignty. They maintain their sovereignty. They make their decisions how they use their resources. They make their decisions how they use their resources. They make their decisions who their resources go to for military support. That's their sovereign right. But my cautionary tale was just from a military perspective. That was a Senate Armed Services Committee asking me a direct question. Burkina Faso, a lot of great things going on to progress them forward, okay? But then when you look at the military part of it, knowing that that's the epicenter of global terrorism, it was my time to illuminate that this is probably their weakest point, and there needs to be sufficient resources going towards for the whole fight of terrorism in that country, period. They make their decisions, though. That's their sovereignty, their sovereign right to make their decisions, what is appropriate, what's not. But I wanted to illuminate that it's going in the wrong direction now. ISIS is getting stronger. JNIM is getting stronger. Al-Qaeda in the lands of the Maghreb is getting stronger in that country.
And do you think it's getting stronger after General Traore took over?
It has. Just look at the numbers of attacks. It really has, since 2022. I've been tracking this since I took command. So, no ill will towards him, but the decisions is their own. They're looking for other ways. To be able to, they're still on warfighting footing. It's just going to take more resources.
So you stand by that statement? Because there's been pressure on you to walk those statements back.
That's my statement. That's my assessment. That is getting worse. More needs to be done. For not just local, but whole of country. Because of these violent extremist organizations are seeking revenue, they're seeking resources, they're seeking recruiting from the Burkinabe people. And they're seeking refuge within their country. That threatens their sovereignty.
for the fact that he acknowledged the fact that Burkina Faso at this level, they talked about autonomy, they talked about their sovereignty. When you talk about autonomy and sovereignty, Burkina Faso is the best example in Africa right now. No debts owed anywhere. And if you critically, I don't know, a lot of people, Africans, they listen to the press conference, and what they heard in that podcast, like, I don't know what to call it, if a presser or a podcast, they were actually listening to the negative things he said. They didn't take their time to listen to the positive things he said. He acknowledged the fact that Burkina Faso is really doing great economically, but this is where the problem is, right? He has said so many things that I have answers to, but it's going to be a lot of time to start debunking this general, so I can't do that. So when he lies too much, so I can't keep repeating the same thing or keep getting video evidences to prove that he lied, because I discovered that most of the time when I expose some of their secrets, the video don't go like, it doesn't even go viral, like they censor it, or the YouTube is gonna make a whole lot of complaint. I have a video hanging for like 24 hours before they even verify the video or something like that. So I don't want to keep exposing, but I'm gonna say something, right? So he made mention of he said the biggest weakness of Burkina Faso. Now he's talking a little bit like somebody that has that means well, but actually when you look at it from the deeper side of it, he doesn't really have a thing to hold Burkina Faso on. Like, it doesn't have, let's say, a premise to back up a conclusion to talk like somehow, to talk crazy about Burkina Faso, right? But he said that the biggest weakness of Burkina Faso is terrorism. Now, he made mention of something. He said since 2022, since he took office, that terrorism in Burkina Faso is on the rise. Now, he talked about the JNIM and stuff like that. He said they are improving. He said Al Qaeda is like, they are growing in Burkina Faso. Now, he made mention of some things. He said that they are recruiting, and some of these recruits are from Burkina Faso. He also said that some of these terrorists are in Burkina Faso, and they're taking refuge in Burkina Faso. And he talked about Burkina Faso being the epicenter of terrorism. Now, that's where I have a problem with this guy. You can't say all those things without giving us a backup, right? So, and he talked about they are getting funded, the weapons and all of that. But he also talked about Burkina Faso is they are progressing in their anti-terrorism fight, and he talked about they are getting their weapons from somewhere. I sense like there is a sort of jealousy that this money to acquire all these drones, all these APCs, all these Humvees, and all of those vehicles, the ammo tanks, that these vehicles aren't coming from the Uncle Toms. Like, it's a lot of money, and if you look at it, and I'm also looking at it from the perspective of there's a lot of sanctions on Russia, and Burkina is buying their weapons from Russia, some from China, so they might be looking at Burkina Faso like, you guys are economically sufficient, we can't dictate for you. You guys have the right, the sovereign right, to dictate who you buy things from, right? So, and Burkina Faso has natural resources. If you hear what they're talking about, they're not talking about money, they're talking about resources, right? So he has a feeling that Burkina Faso is kind of helping Russia. If you look at it from deep down, they feel like maybe Burkina Faso is helping Russia bypass the sanctions, because the sanctions are actually not affecting Russia. So it kind of, maybe I feel like the United States is looking at it like, okay, who are the allies of Russia? Now, if Russia is not getting affected by these sanctions, it means their allies are helping them, and Burkina Faso is a strong ally of Russia. So they might be looking at it that, okay, maybe for this military weapon system acquisition, maybe there is an exchange of resources for the value of this weapon, which is 100% something that is actually achievable. You can either exchange your currency, or you can exchange gold. You can, it's give and take, it's trade by barter. So it does, as long as it goes to the US, is right. It goes to maybe UK or those guys, but once it's going to Russia, it's going to China, it's not right, because those guys are seen as global threats for the global world order. I don't know, but we in Africa, we don't buy that idea, because these are the people that actually gave us what we need when we needed to fight for our own freedom. Turkey was a big contributor to all of this, because Turkey sold the right weapons to Burkina Faso, and we were able to, destroy some of these terrorist enclaves completely. And here you can see a picture of the military personnel, the Rapid Intervention Brigade under the command of Captain Watao, destroying a lot of terrorists in a particular place where the citizens that have been displaced were able to return back to the place. And you can see the citizens actually praising this military personnel. So, like, let me talk about some things, right? So going back to the allegation he made, like, there's a lot of recruitment going on and all of that. That means General Langley actually knows some things about these terrorists, because we don't know where these terrorists are getting recruited from, right? But it seems like General Michael Langley knows how these terrorists are being recruited. He knows how they are being trained. He knows who is recruiting them, where they are from, because we don't know where these terrorists are from, right? But it seems like General Langley knows where these terrorists are from. He knows their recruitment pattern, their training. So to me, if we don't know and he knows, maybe AFRICOM might be a base for training terrorists. I'm saying this with all my full chest, because how did you know? And we in Africa, we don't even know, right? There has been speculations of foreign fundings. Look at the euros that were intercepted in Mali, the 47 buses that were intercepted in Burkina Faso, and also you will see people coming out from inside a vehicle. Recently, that's the breaking news.
So we have some major breaking news coming from Burkina Faso. So the police in Burkina Faso have captured a vehicle, trucks that were carrying terrorists in Burkina Faso territory. You won't believe that these trucks were labeled as humanitarian aid and they belonged to a Western nation. And they were saying that there is a lot of trouble in Burkina Faso. People need food and they are bringing humanitarian aid. And instead of passing through the borders, they went around the country and passed through the border between Burkina Faso and Togo. And as these trucks were getting into Burkina Faso, you won't believe that the army in Burkina Faso suspected that there must be something that has been carried in that is not supposed to get into Burkina Faso. And when they opened the trucks, people just started coming out, and it turned out that these are terrorists who were planning to take down Ibrahim Traore and cause destabilization in Burkina Faso. It looks like the Western nation that is against Ibrahim Traore is so much committed to use all the money that they have to ensure that Burkina Faso President Ibrahim Traore is down.
Vehicles were intercepted, trucks were intercepted, and people were coming out from that vehicles, innocent people that did not even know. We're going to get to that. I'm going to play video evidence of all those things. But ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let's talk about what the news that came from this Russian channel, Sputnik, right? Sputnik reported that the question was, who is arming terrorists in Africa? According to Sputnik, Western weapons delivered to Ukraine are ending up in the hands of armed group in Africa. A Russia foreign ministry official has said weapons sent by the West to Kiev regime are beginning to flow into West Africa. Nigeria warned in November 2022. This is not like a new thing now. We're 2025, but this has been going on since 2022. Remember, we used to talk about, like, who is funding these guys? How do they sustain themselves? Who is giving them this money? Remember that? So who is giving them these billions? Where are they getting these weapons from? Like, you understand? So according to, that was in 2022, right? They said the arrival of this weapon posed new challenges at a time when the terrorist threat in the Lake Chad Basin had been relatively under control. Laments the country's then president. That was Idrissa Deby, the father of the current president, Mamadou Deby. Yeah. So now they said in Central African Republic, Russian military instructor reported seizing French, Belgian, American-made weapons from terrorist groups. Sometimes these are even the most recent models. Alexander Ivanov, director of Community of Officers for International Security Reports, right? And the last one they reported was that the weapons supplied to Kiev by the West are worse than those that came through Libya. A retired officer from the Tunisian National Guard told Sputnik in April 2023, for the simple reason that they are very sophisticated and it is cutting edge technology. So we've been asking this question in Africa, that who is supplying these weapons to these people? Recently in Nigeria, Sahara reporters reported that the drones that they were seeing that these terrorists were using were looking like those of the West, and even they specifically talked about Ukrainian drones. So I could not wrap my head around those things then, but it's beginning to come to life right now. I'm beginning to see very well now how these things, how they work, right? So based on the recent informations that we've been receiving, could it be, because General Langley was talking about JNIM terrorist group, he was specifically picking this terrorist group and how they've been improving, right? Could it be that they have first-hand information on how they have been improving, because they are the ones in charge of training, they are the ones supplying the weapons? Because according to this video, right, this video I'm about to play, according to this video, even though there are no, these videos cannot be verified, because these kind of things will never be verified on the mainstream media, right? So even though it's a rumor, I want you guys to critically look at these videos, right, and look at the occurrences and try to think for yourself what you think is tenable. Could it be that AFRICOM is training terrorists in West Africa?
Major breaking news. You won't believe what is happening in Burkina Faso. Remember those terrorists that were arrested and unalived in Burkina Faso during the recent attack, right? They were not terrorists. Let me explain. So I spoke to someone from Burkina Faso, and also there is a trending video of someone from Ivory Coast. He's speaking French, explaining exactly what is going on there. So this is what he's saying. He's saying that France and USA, they are recruiting people from Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, all over Africa to go and fight for Ukraine, to go and help Ukraine fight Russia. So these people, they are signing up because of the promised money they are going to get paid, without knowing that they are not signing to go to Ukraine, but the day of traveling, that is when they are taken to Burkina Faso. Can you believe this? So those terrorists that were attacking Burkina Faso when Ibrahim Traore was in Russia, those are the same people who were recruited to go and fight for Ukraine, but they were taken to Burkina Faso to attack Burkina Faso. So this, my friend from Burkina Faso, she is telling me that more than 500 of those people, they were unalived, and more than 300, they were arrested. And when they were caught, they said that they had no idea they were signing to go and fight war in Ukraine, but they were brought there to Burkina Faso.
We have some major breaking news coming from Burkina Faso. You won't believe that the people who were unalived in Burkina Faso, who they were called terrorists, are actually not terrorists. In fact, if you see from that drone video, these are people who are confused. They are running away from those drones. As those drones are dropping bombs on their heads. Let me tell you, this one is going to shock you, and it is going to shock the whole of Africa. So there is an agency in Africa that is telling youth, you can go and fight for Ukraine in exchange of a lot of money. And many youth are falling in this trap. So this is what happened. Immediately you accept that you are going to fight for Ukraine, you are told that you are going to be taken to Ukraine. Instead of you being taken to Ukraine, you fall into a very different destination. That is where? Burkina Faso. And when you go to Burkina Faso, you are told that Burkina Faso and Russia are allies. So you're just fighting for Ukraine in Burkina Faso. And when you go there, you are not trained, you are just given some weapons to go and fight in the name of removing or making Ibrahim Traore to step down. And when you reach there, you meet Ibrahim Traore's drones, and that is how you are neutralized. It is now turning out that these people that we are seeing in these videos being neutralized are Africans who have been deceived, who are gullible and have decided they want cheap money in Africa. These people are using all the methods to ensure that they are taking down Ibrahim Traore.
For me, based on my own opinion, Burkina Faso is completely sovereign. How in hell is it that this guy that called himself General Langley has snapped pictures with all the old presidents in Africa, but he hasn't snapped, we've not seen a camera shot of General Langley with any of those 3 lion presidents? I want to see this guy sit down with the AES presidents, and I want to see how his body language is going to be. To me, I take everything he's saying with a pinch of salt. As like, I take everything this guy says with a pinch of salt. If there is a terrorist to look out for, I think that is the terrorist we need to be looking at. And I think their operations around the borders of the AES has to be extremely monitored, because these guys have a track record of sponsoring terrorism. The USAID, we can't continue to mention a lot of them. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look at things for what it is, and just let me feel your opinion in the comment section, what you think, right? Just let me know what you think about this whole thing. He said some things that were actually right about the economic improvement of Burkina Faso, but he actually said some things that were wrong. Let's not forget that. So this is going to be the last time I'm going to be talking about this guy, because I don't need to glorify a glorified slave. Okay? I don't need to glorify. I don't need to talk about, because I feel like we are giving this guy some level of publicity where he has no say in anything. This guy is being controlled, is being instructed to say this and this and this. Do the biggest damage you can do, because how does he come up with those statistics if you don't even have any representative in any of the AES states? You don't have no media, no BBC lying media. The person feeding you this information is from Kenya, 6,000 miles away from Burkina Faso. How come? So, ladies and gentlemen, I can't wrap my head around this. I just want you to give me your opinion in the comment section below, what you think, right?